The stars shimmered and twisted as 300 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Each vessel stretched across the darkness like a floating city, their hulls gleaming with alien metals that caught the distant light of the sun. The largest ship, called the Dominion's Edge, led the fleet forward with slow, terrifying purpose. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, his forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the small blue planet on the viewing screen. His scaled skin caught the light from the control panels, and his yellow eyes narrowed with satisfaction. After months of travel, they had finally reached their destination. "Such a small world," he said to his second-in-command, Commander Zekra. "Hard to believe these creatures have spread to other planets in their system." "The scouts report they have primitive settlements on their moon and the Red Planet, Admiral," Zekra replied, consulting his data pad. "Their technology appears to be based on chemical rockets and basic nuclear power. No threat to the Empire." Vextar nodded. This would be easy. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered over 200 worlds, and none had been as backward as this. 1. Most civilizations at least had proper energy weapons and faster-than-light travel when the Empire arrived. These humans were still burning fuel to get into space. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Chang sat in front of her computer screen at the Arecibo radio telescope facility in Puerto Rico. She had been monitoring deep space signals for 15 years, listening for anything unusual. Most nights were quiet, filled only with the natural radio waves from distant stars and galaxies. Tonight was different. The readings on her screen showed massive gravitational disturbances near Neptune's orbit. The numbers were impossible. Nothing natural could create waves that strong in space-time itself. She checked her equipment twice, then called her supervisor. "Dr. Peterson, you need to see this right away," she said into her phone, her voice shaking slightly. Within an hour, Dr. Peterson arrived with 2 other scientists. They stared at the data in silence. The gravitational readings showed objects, larger than anything humanity had ever built, and there were hundreds of them. "Could it be some kind of natural phenomenon?" Dr. Peterson asked. Lisa shook her head. "The objects are moving in formation. This is artificial. This is technology." Similar readings appeared at observatories around the world. The Very Large Array in New Mexico, the Parkes Observatory in Australia, and the European Space Agency's tracking stations all confirmed the same impossible truth. Something huge had arrived at the edge of the solar system. President Jack Morrison received the call at 3 a.m. He listened to the briefing from NASA Administrator Kate Williams with growing concern. By dawn, he had called an emergency meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. General Paul Martinez spread the satellite photos across the conference table. The images were grainy, taken by the most powerful telescopes humanity had, but they were clear enough. Massive ships, each one several miles long, hung in space like sleeping giants. "How many?" President Morrison asked. "Our best count is just over 300 vessels," General Martinez replied. "The largest appears to be about 8 miles from front to back." Director Williams leaned forward. "Mr. President, we've been trying to establish communication. So far, no response to any of our signals. What are our options?" the President asked. The room fell silent. Everyone present understood the reality. Humanity's most advanced warships were barely larger than city blocks. Their nuclear weapons, devastating as they were on Earth, would barely scratch the hull of vessels that size. "Sir," General Martinez said carefully, "if these visitors have hostile intentions, our conventional military options are extremely limited." The answer came 18 hours later. Every television screen on Earth flickered at exactly 12 noon GMT. Radio broadcasts stopped mid-sentence. Cell phones, computers, and emergency communication systems all received the same signal simultaneously. The technology required to hijack every electronic device on the planet was beyond anything humans possessed. The image that appeared showed a tall, scaled being standing on what was clearly the bridge of a spacecraft. Admiral Vextar looked directly into the camera, his yellow eyes reflecting an intelligence that was unmistakably alien, yet somehow familiar in its coldness. "Primitive species of the 3rd planet," the voice said, the words perfectly translated into every language on Earth simultaneously. I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our domain. Families, gathered around television sets, stopped eating dinner. Workers in offices stared at their computer screens in disbelief. Children in schools fell silent as their teachers struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. You will submit to Zephyrian. Rule within 72 standard hours. Vextar continued, his voice emotionless and matter-of-fact. Your governments will surrender unconditionally. Your military forces will stand down. Your people will accept their new status as subjects of the Empire. The alien admiral paused, allowing his words to sink in across the billions of people. Watching. Resistance will result in complete planetary sterilization. Your cities will be destroyed. Your population will be eliminated. Your world will be prepared for colonization by superior species. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is a statement of fact. The transmission showed the view from Vextar's bridge. Through the massive viewing windows, Earth appeared as a small blue dot in the distance. Around it, barely visible, were the dark shapes of the Zephyrian fleet. You have been warned, Vextar concluded. 72 hours. The screens went black. Normal programming resumed as if nothing had happened, but nothing would ever be normal again. In the Pentagon, President Morrison sat in stunned silence with his advisors. The weight of 6 billion lives pressed down on his shoulders. Around the world, other leaders faced the same impossible choice: surrender their entire species to alien rule, or watch their planet burn. In his laboratory beneath the Swiss Alps, Dr. Helen Ross received an encrypted message on a communication system that officially did not exist. The message contained only 2 words, but they changed everything. Pandora's box. She reached for a red telephone that had never rung in 30 years of service. When someone answered, she spoke clearly. This is Dr. Ross. Authorization code. Omega 77. Initiate the sleeping giant protocol. The countdown had begun, but it was not the countdown the aliens expected. The United Nations building in New York had never seen anything like it. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat together in the General Assembly Hall, their usual disagreements forgotten in the face of humanity's greatest threat. The emergency session had been called within hours of the alien broadcast, and for the first time in the organization's history, every single member nation had sent their leader. President Jack Morrison stood at the podium, looking out at faces that reflected the same mixture of fear and determination he felt in his own heart. Prime ministers, presidents, kings, and chancellors who had spent years arguing over borders and trade deals now faced a choice that would determine whether humanity would survive as a free species. Fellow leaders, Morrison began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. We all heard the same message. We all have the same 72 hours. The question before us is simple. Do we surrender our freedom or do we fight for it? The President of France, Marie-Laurent, raised her hand. Mr. Morrison, with respect, what chance do we have? Their ships are the size of our cities. Our most powerful weapons are like stones thrown at tanks. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The math was simple and terrifying. 300 alien warships against Earth's combined military forces was not a battle. It was an execution. General Paul Martinez stepped forward from his position behind the president. He had been quiet during the flight to New York, but now his voice carried the weight of a man who had spent his entire career preparing for the impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, Martinez said, I have a proposal. We give them one warning. Li Wei, Chinese Premier Li Wei, looked confused. General, they have already given us their warning. What could we possibly warn them about? Martinez looked around the room, meeting the eyes of leaders who controlled the fate of billions. We warn them to leave. We warn them that they have made a mistake. We warn them that humanity is not what they think we are. The British Prime Minister Robert Clark shook his head. General, that sounds like suicide with extra steps. They will laugh at us, then they will destroy us. Maybe, Martinez replied. But what if they don't? What if there are things about humanity that they don't know? What if we have been preparing for this day longer than any of us have been alive? The room fell silent. President Morrison looked at his general with new understanding. There were conversations that had happened in rooms far more secure than this one, plans that existed in files with classifications beyond top secret. General Martinez, the president said carefully, "Are you telling us that we have options we haven't discussed?" Martinez nodded slowly. "Mr. President, I am telling you that if we are going to make a stand, now is the time. One warning, clear and simple. If they ignore it, then we show them what humanity is really capable of." The vote was unanimous. 193 nations agreed to humanity's response. The message would be broadcast in 2 hours, giving every person on Earth time to hear what their leaders had decided. In television studios around the world, the same scene played out. News anchors struggled to find words for what was happening. Religious leaders offered prayers in every language. Parents held their children closer, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. President Morrison returned to the White House where a simple television camera had been set up in the Oval Office. Around him stood the leaders of the world's major powers, united in a way that would have been impossible just days before. The camera began recording. "To the Zephyrian Empire," Morrison said, looking directly into the lens. "This is President Jack Morrison, speaking on behalf of all humanity and all the nations of Earth." His voice was calm, steady, and carried the authority of an entire species. "We have received your ultimatum. We have heard your demands. Before you proceed with your plans, we offer you this single warning." Morrison paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Leave. Leave our system now. Do not approach our world. Do not threaten our people. Do not make the mistake of believing that we are helpless simply because we appear less advanced than you." Behind him, the leaders of Russia, China, Britain, France, Germany, Japan, and dozens of other nations stood in silent support. This is not fear speaking. This is not desperation. This is a genuine attempt to prevent a tragedy that will cost both our species more than you can imagine. We do not want war. We do not want destruction, but we will not surrender our freedom. Morrison's voice grew stronger. You believe you know what humanity is capable of. You believe your intelligence about our technology is complete. You believe that your superior numbers and larger ships guarantee your victory. You are wrong. The president leaned forward slightly. This is your only warning. This is your only chance to leave with your honor and your lives intact. Do not force us to show you what we are truly capable of. Do not make us demonstrate why you should have studied us more carefully before you came here. The message was broadcast on every frequency humanity could access, transmitted toward the alien fleet with power levels that pushed Earth's communication systems to their limits. Admiral Vextar received the transmission aboard the Dominion's Edge 37 minutes later. He watched the human leader's message with growing amusement, then played it again for his senior officers. The bridge erupted in laughter. "Admiral," Commander Zekra said between chuckles, "they actually believe they can threaten us. These primitives, with their chemical rockets, think they can warn the Zephyrian Empire." Vextar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Their courage is admirable, even if their intelligence is lacking. Very well. If they wish to play at being warriors, we will accommodate them." He turned to his navigation officer. "Set course for the 4th planet. We will establish our forward base there. Then proceed to demonstrate what happens when inferior species refuse the Empire's generous offer of servitude." The Zephyrian fleet began moving toward Mars, their massive engines creating ripples in space-time itself. 300 ships of war advanced through the solar system, their crews confident in their overwhelming superiority. On Earth, President Morrison watched the radar displays that showed the alien fleet's movement. General Martinez stood beside him, a secure phone in his hand. "They're not listening, sir," Martinez said quietly. Morrison nodded. "Then God help us all. Give the order, General." Martinez lifted the phone and spoke 2 words that would change the course of galactic history. Pandora's box. In hidden facilities around the world, systems that had waited decades for activation began to power up. Deep beneath NORAD, Colonel Steve Barnes entered authorization codes that he had memorized but never expected to use. Humanity had given their warning. The aliens had ignored it. Now they would learn why that was a mistake. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in a laboratory that appeared on no government maps, Dr. Helen Ross placed her hand on a scanner that had waited 30 years to be used. The machine beeped once, and massive blast doors began to open with a sound, like thunder underground. Authorization confirmed, a computer voice announced. Quantum field generators coming online. Project Aegis is now active. Ross walked through corridors carved from solid rock, past equipment that humanity officially had never built. Her footsteps echoed in the silence as she reached the main control room. Banks of computers hummed to life, their screens showing readouts that would have seemed like magic to most scientists on Earth. Begin Phase 1 initialization, she commanded. Around the world, similar scenes played out in facilities hidden beneath mountains, under ocean floors, and in places so secret that only a handful of people knew they existed. Humanity had been preparing for this day not since they first detected alien signals, but since they first stepped into space 60 years ago. Colonel Sam Parker floated in the zero gravity of what the world knew as Research Station Aegis 7, 2. Anyone watching from Earth, it looked like a simple scientific facility studying asteroid composition. The truth was very different. Parker pressed his thumb to a hidden panel near the airlock. Red lights began flashing throughout the station as blast shields retracted from windows that had been dark for 15 years. The station's outer hull began to change, panels sliding away to reveal arrays of weapons that had no names in any human language. Control, this is Parker, he spoke into his headset. Aegis 7 is revealing true configuration. All systems showing green. His crew of 40 had trained for this moment their entire careers. They were not scientists studying rocks. They were humanity's first line of defense, operating technology that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. In the asteroid belt, between Mars and Jupiter, something that had pretended to be a dead rock for 20 years began to crack open. Captain Linda Foster felt the vibration through the deck plates as her ship, the USS Leviathan, awakened from its long sleep. All hands. This is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. Battle stations, this is not a drill. 200 crew members emerged from suspended animation pods, their bodies slowly warming as medical systems brought them back to full consciousness. They had been asleep for 15 years, waiting for a day they hoped would never come. Thar, asteroid surface split apart like an eggshell, revealing a vessel that incorporated technology. Humanity had spent decades developing in secret. The Leviathan was not built with human engineering alone. Hidden in laboratories around Earth were pieces of alien technology, recovered from crashed vessels that had visited Earth throughout human history. Foster looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Zephyrian fleet. 300 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built openly. But they were not facing the humanity they thought they knew. Helm, engage gravitic cloaking, Foster ordered. Weapons, power up the exotic matter cannon. Gravitic. Cloak engaged, Captain, reported Lieutenant Jake Morris from the helm station. We are invisible to their sensors. The Leviathan vanished from normal space, bending light and sensor beams around its hull using technology that manipulated gravity itself. To the alien fleet, it simply ceased to exist. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge as his fleet approached Mars. The small human colonies on the red planet would make perfect examples. A few demonstration attacks would show Earth what happened to species that defied the Empire. Admiral, his sensor officer reported, we are detecting some unusual energy readings from the inner system. Vextar glanced at the displays. Probably, they're primitive power plants running at higher output. Fear makes inferior species do desperate things. He had no idea that every energy reading his sensors detected was intentional. Humanity was not hiding their preparations anymore. They were announcing them. On Earth's moon, beneath the gray dust of the Sea of Tranquility, Captain Amy Davis commanded Lunar Base Sanctuary 1. The base had been built in secret over 20 years, disguised as mining operations and research facilities. Its true purpose was far more deadly. All sections report ready, Captain. Her second-in-command, Major Bill Thompson, announced. Davis nodded and opened a channel to Earth. Control, this is Sanctuary 1. We have clear firing solutions on the entire alien fleet. Awaiting your orders, the weapons hidden beneath the lunar surface could reach any point in the solar system in seconds. They used principles of physics that human scientists had discovered by studying alien technology, recovered from crashes that governments had kept secret for decades. Dr. Ross, deep in her alpine laboratory, watched displays that showed the true scope of humanity's hidden defenses. Orbital platforms disguised as communication satellites were powering up weapons that could tear holes in space itself. Ships that had pretended to be research vessels were revealing their true nature as instruments of war. Phase 2, initialization, complete, she reported to General Martinez over a secure channel. All quantum field projectors are online. We can begin space-time manipulation on your command. Martinez received similar reports from around the globe. The Sahara Desert facility was ready. The deep ocean platforms were active. The Antarctic Research Station had dropped its disguise and was preparing to demonstrate technology that could move planets. Dr. Ross, Martinez said quietly, how long have we been ready for this? General, we have been ready since 1962. We just needed someone to give us a reason to stop hiding. The alien fleet continued its approach to Mars, completely unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. Their sensors showed them exactly what humanity wanted them to see. A primitive species with chemical, rockets, and basic nuclear technology. They could not detect the gravitational anomalies that surrounded them. They could not see the ships that used technology beyond their understanding to remain invisible. They could not comprehend that the species they were about to attack had been preparing for this encounter since before most of them were born. Admiral Vextar ordered his forward ships to begin their attack on the Mars colonies. It would be a simple demonstration of power, designed to terrify Earth into immediate surrender. Target the largest human settlement, he commanded. One shot should be sufficient to destroy their entire population there. The Zephyrian destroyer Void Render powered up its main weapon, a plasma cannon capable of melting mountains. Its captain selected his target and prepared to fire. He never got the chance. Captain Foster's Leviathan materialized directly behind the Dominion's edge, having traveled through folded space in the blink of an eye. The exotic matter cannon, charged with energy that could unmake atoms themselves, was already aimed at the alien flagship's engine section. This is Captain Linda, Foster of the United Earth Defense Force, she broadcast on all frequencies. You were warned. The Leviathan fired. The exotic matter cannon fired with no sound in the vacuum of space, but its effect was impossible to miss. A beam of pure energy that existed beyond normal physics struck the Dominion's edge exactly where Captain Foster had aimed it. The beam passed through the alien flagship's shields as if they were made of air. It cut through the hull like it was paper. Then it continued straight through the entire ship, creating a perfect circular hole 3 miles wide that went from one end of the massive vessel to the other. Admiral Vextar felt the deck shake beneath his feet as his flagship began to tear itself apart. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the ship as atmosphere rushed out through the enormous hole that had appeared in seconds. What happened? He shouted at his bridge crew. What weapon could do this? His sensor officer stared at his instruments in disbelief. Admiral, I'm reading a human vessel directly behind us. It appeared from nowhere. Impossible, Vextar snarled. Their ships are tiny. Their weapons are primitive. The Leviathan hung in space behind the dying flagship, its hull gleaming with technology that the Zephyrian Empire had never seen before. Captain Foster opened communication channels to the entire alien fleet. Attention Zephyrian vessels. Her voice carried across space on frequencies that penetrated every alien ship simultaneously. This is Captain Linda Foster of the United Earth Defense Force. You have ignored our warning. Now you will face the consequences. Before any alien ship could respond, Colonel Sam Parker's Aegis 7 dropped its disguise completely. The research station transformed before the aliens' eyes, revealing weapon arrays that stretched for miles in every direction. The gravitational wave generators that powered the station's true purpose began to charge. Aegis 7 to all Earth forces, Parker broadcast. Beginning gravitational bombardment in 3 seconds. The first wave hit 12 Zephyrian destroyers at once. Space itself seemed to twist around the alien ships as gravity increased to impossible levels. The destroyers, each one over a mile long, were crushed like tin cans in the grip of a giant. Their hulls collapsed inward as the gravitational waves compressed them into balls of twisted metal, barely 100 feet across. Commander Zekra, aboard one of the few surviving command ships, watched his fleet being destroyed by weapons he could not understand. "Admiral, we need to retreat. These humans have technology beyond our databases." But Admiral Vextar was trapped on his dying flagship as it broke apart around him. Escape pods launched automatically as the Dominion's edge split into 3 massive pieces, each one spinning away into the darkness of space. From Earth's surface, Dr. Helen Ross activated the planetary defense grid. Hidden facilities on every continent began working together, creating quantum field distortions that reached across millions of miles of space. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Entire squadrons of Zephyrian ships simply vanished from normal space as the quantum fields transported them into parallel dimensions. Others found themselves suddenly traveling backwards in time by several seconds, causing them to collide with their own past positions in explosions that lit up the asteroid belt. "Target the command ships," Dr. Ross ordered her technicians. "We need to end this quickly." Captain Amy Davis watched the battle from her hidden base beneath the moon's surface. Sanctuary 1's main weapon was different from the others. Instead of destroying ships, it could reach inside them and shut down their systems directly. "Fire," she commanded. The lunar weapon sent invisible pulses of energy that passed through alien hulls without damaging them. Instead, the pulses found the electronic systems that controlled each ship's life support, engines, and weapons. Within seconds, 50 Zephyrian vessels went completely dark, drifting helplessly through space as their crews struggled with systems that had simply stopped working. The battle that Admiral Vextar had expected to be a simple demonstration of Empire superiority lasted exactly 18 minutes from first shot to final explosion. When it ended, only 17 Zephyrian ships remained functional out of the original 300. The survivors hung motionless in space, their crews too shocked to move. Around them floated the wreckage of the most powerful fleet the Empire had ever assembled, destroyed by a species they had dismissed as barely evolved animals. Admiral Vextar, bleeding from cuts received when his flagship broke apart, was rescued by one of the surviving ships. He was brought to the bridge of the cruiser Final Strike, where he stared at tactical displays that showed the impossible. "How?" he whispered. "How did they hide such power?" Commander Zekra, who had also survived the destruction of the flagship, checked the readings again and again. "The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases, Admiral. These weapons use principles of physics that our scientists have never encountered." The human fleet, revealed now in all its hidden strength, surrounded the Zephyrian survivors but made no move to finish them off. The Leviathan, Aegis 7, and dozens of other vessels that had been disguised as innocent research stations now showed their true nature as instruments of war beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Foster's voice came across the communication channels again, but this time her tone was different. Instead of the cold efficiency of battle, she spoke with something that sounded almost like compassion. "Admiral Vextar, are you receiving this transmission?" Vextar, his pride as broken as his flagship, activated his response system. "I am here, human. Admiral, you came to our system expecting to find a primitive species with crude weapons and no defenses. You found something very different. The question now is what happens next." The alien admiral looked around the bridge of the Final Strike at his surviving officers. These were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, veterans of 100 space battles. Now they sat in stunned silence, defeated by enemies they had never taken seriously. "What do you want from us?" Vextar asked. Captain Amy Davis's voice joined the conversation from her lunar base. "Admiral, before we answer that question, we want you to understand something important. Everything you just witnessed was not our full capability. It was a demonstration using approximately 5% of our actual defensive systems." The bridge of the Final Strike fell completely silent. "We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first 30 seconds, Captain Foster continued. We could have done it without you ever seeing us coming. We chose to let some of you survive because we wanted to give you a chance to hear what we have to say. Admiral Vextar felt something he had never experienced in his long military career. For the first time in his life, he was truly afraid, not of death but of the realization that his mighty empire had just tried to conquer a species that could have erased them from existence without effort. "What do you want to say?" he asked quietly. President Morrison's voice came across the communication system, broadcast from Earth to the surviving alien ships. "Admiral Vextar, we want to talk. We want to make you an offer that has never been made in the history of your empire." The president paused, letting his words reach every surviving alien. "We want to offer you partnership instead of conquest. We want to show you that there is a better way than ruling through fear. But first, you need to listen." Admiral Vextar sat in the command chair of the final strike, staring at the communication screen that showed President Morrison's face. Around him, his surviving officers waited in silence. The proud admiral who had arrived at Earth expecting easy conquest now faced a choice that would change the fate of his entire civilization. "You wish to talk?" Vextar said slowly. "After destroying my fleet, you offer conversation. Why?" President Morrison leaned forward in his chair. Behind him stood the leaders of Earth's major nations, united in a way that would have been impossible before the alien arrival. "Because, Admiral, we are not like the civilizations you have conquered before. We do not seek revenge. We seek understanding." General Martinez stepped into view of the camera. "Admiral, we have been monitoring your empire's communications for over 40 years. We know about your struggles with the crystalline entities from the Andromeda Galaxy. We know about the plague worlds in the Outer Rim. We know about the ancient artificial intelligence networks that have been awakening throughout your territory." Vextar's eyes widened. The Empire's greatest threats were classified secrets known only to the highest levels of government. How could these humans know about problems that kept the Empire's leaders awake at night? Dr. Helen Ross appeared on screen from her laboratory beneath the Alps. "Admiral, we have been preparing for this meeting not just to defend ourselves, but to offer our help. Your empire rules through fear and superior firepower. But there are threats in this galaxy that cannot be conquered by force alone. The crystalline entities," Commander Zekra whispered from his position beside the Admiral. "They have been growing stronger each year. Our weapons barely slow them down." President Morrison nodded. "We know, and we believe we can help you stop them permanently." Captain Foster's voice joined the conversation from the Leviathan. "Admiral, the quantum field technology you just witnessed can do more than destroy ships. It can create barriers that the crystalline entities cannot pass through. The gravitational weapons that crushed your destroyers can be used to seal the dimensional rifts that allow them to enter our universe." For the first time since his flagship was destroyed, Admiral Vextar felt something other than defeat. He felt hope. "You would share these technologies with us?" he asked. "After we came here to conquer your world?" "Yes," President Morrison replied simply. "But not as conquered subjects sharing with their masters, as equals sharing with partners." The concept was so foreign to Zephyrian thinking that Vextar struggled to understand it. The Empire had ruled for thousands of years by subjugating weaker species. The idea of treating another civilization as an equal was revolutionary. Dr. Ross began explaining humanity's proposal. Earth would share its defensive technologies with the Empire in exchange for membership in the galactic community. No tribute would be paid. No territory would be surrendered. Humanity would remain free and independent while contributing to the defense of civilized space. "We have studied your history, Admiral," General Martinez continued. "The Empire was not always built on conquest. Your earliest records show a confederation of worlds working together by choice, not force. We are offering you a chance to return to those principles." Captain Amy Davis spoke from her lunar base. "The technologies we have developed here on Earth work best when used by civilizations that trust each other. Fear and oppression actually make our weapons less effective. Cooperation makes them stronger." Admiral Vextar found himself considering possibilities he had never imagined. The Empire's greatest problem was not external enemies but internal rebellion. Dozens of conquered worlds were constantly on the edge of revolt. Resources that should have been used for exploration and defense were instead spent keeping subject species under control. "You are suggesting that we change the fundamental nature of the empire," he said. "We are suggesting that you save it," President Morrison replied. "The crystalline entities are not your only threat. Our long-range sensors have detected something else approaching from deep space. Something that makes the crystalline swarms look small by comparison." The alien admiral felt a chill run through his scaled skin. "What have you seen?" Dr. Ross activated a holographic display that appeared above the communication system. It showed deep space sensor readings that stretched back 20 years. Far beyond the edge of known space, something massive was moving toward the galaxy. "We call them the Devourers," she said quietly. "They consume entire star systems, converting matter and energy into more of themselves. They will reach the outer edge of your empire in approximately 15 years. The bridge of the final strike fell silent as the implications sank in. The Zephyrian Empire, for all its power, would never survive an encounter with entities that could eat stars. But together, Captain Foster added, we might have a chance. Human quantum technology combined with Zephyrian industrial capacity could create defenses that neither of us could build alone. 3 months later, the first human ambassador arrived at the Zephyrian capital world. Julie Martinez, General Martinez's daughter, stepped off the Leviathan onto alien soil carrying not weapons, but blueprints for the quantum field generators that had so easily stopped the Empire's fleet. The galaxy watched in amazement as two species that had nearly destroyed each other became partners in the defense of all civilized life. The quantum barrier network that humanity and the Empire built together stopped the crystalline entities completely. The plague worlds were cleansed using medical technology that combined human innovation with Zephyrian knowledge. Admiral Vextar, now serving as the first Zephyrian ambassador to Earth, stood in the White House with President Morrison as they signed the Mutual Defense Treaty. The document established Earth as an independent member of the galactic community, protected by its own strength, but allied with former enemies who had become friends. "I must ask you something," Vextar said as they finished the ceremony. "When you gave us that first warning, did you know we would ignore it?" Morrison smiled. "Admiral, we hoped you would listen. But yes, we were prepared for you to refuse. And if we had accepted your warning and left immediately, then we would have sent Ambassador Martinez to your capital world 6 months later with the same offer of partnership. The only difference is that it would have cost fewer lives on both sides." Admiral Vextar filed his final military report that evening. The document would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. His final words became legendary throughout known space. "The humans gave us one warning. That was one more than they needed to give. They possess the power to destroy entire fleets, yet they choose to build alliances instead. They develop weapons that could crack planets, then offer to share them with former enemies. Recommendation: full diplomatic recognition and immediate alliance. Additional recommendation: study their methods carefully. There is much we can learn from a species that makes friends out of those who came to conquer them." 5 years later, when the Devourers finally reached the galaxy's edge, they encountered something they had never faced before. Instead of scattered, fighting civilizations, they found a united alliance of dozens of species working together. The quantum barrier networks held. The gravitational weapons worked perfectly. The Devourers were stopped at the galaxy's edge and driven back into the void between stars. Dr. Helen Ross, now director of the Galactic Defense Initiative, stood in her new laboratory on the moon and watched the deep space sensors that monitored the barriers. Humanity had gone from a single threatened world to the galaxy's greatest hope for peace in less than a decade. The species that had once faced extinction, with a single defiant warning, had become the bridge between war and cooperation that the galaxy had never known it needed.